But before Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury, WNBA tickets were averaging $89. The moment she went down, price crashed nearly 30%, plummeting to $62 a seat. That's kind of crazy. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but obviously the biggest reason is...
Okay, so the WNBA, it looks like they're heading for a full-blown ratings and financial disaster, and Commissioner Kathy Engelbert is just stuck watching as the league's big moment totally falls apart. What they were hyping up as massive growth now feels more like a nightmare unfolding quicker than a popped balloon, which is just wild when you think about it.
The WNBA and the Indiana Fever did not want people to know that Caitlin Clark was going to be out for the season. I can tell you, from the very day that they decided to let that go public, everything has dropped off a cliff. Views on this channel, the television ratings, the interest, Thanos snapped out of existence. People were trying to hang on to the possibility this whole time. Look, so many people stayed engaged with the team because they thought the cavalry was coming.
And get this, what kicked off this whole mess? The Indiana Fever dropped a bombshell. Caitlin Clark won't be back for the rest of the 2025 season, so now with their only real star sidelined, the WNBA is forced to face a brutal reality. Seriously, without Clark, this league risks becoming nothing more than an overpriced exhibition, and honestly, fans are already losing interest super fast.
Late July, the WNBA proudly flaunted ratings for the All-Star Game, which drew 2.2 million viewers. Of course, they conveniently failed to mention that ratings were down 36% from the record ratings that Caitlin Clark pulled the year before. Early August, ESPN pointed out that the Seattle Spankers and the Indiana Felines, without Caitlin Clark, drew 1.6 million on ABC. ESPN claimed that WNBA ratings were up 20% over last year, mostly without Caitlin Clark playing. But over the last 3 or 4 weeks, both the WNBA and the media have been strangely silent. I wonder...
The financial fallout from Caitlin Clark's season-ending news, oh man, it's hit the WNBA like a complete sledgehammer. We're talking playoff ticket prices collapsing by almost 30% overnight. Games that used to cost like $200 a seat are now practically begging for buyers at just $25. This isn't just a small dip, it's a total freefall, completely exposing how the league's entire money-making machine has become unbelievably dependent on Caitlin Clark's star power, and hers alone.
Guys, the WNBA are currently treading dangerous waters. It's sharks out there, y'all. It is sharks out there in the deep ends of that water. Reality is hitting, and the playoffs have the potential to expose even more. Ratings could potentially crash in this year's WNBA playoffs without Caitlin Clark. Networks have their eyes peeled to what is going on, and ticket prices plummeted 30% while Caitlin Clark was out with her.
The Indiana Fever, who were basically selling out games with premium tickets all season, saw those prices just collapse the second Caitlin Clark went down. Road game tickets, they plunged a massive 71%, dropping from an average of $137 to just $80. Let me tell you, that's not a simple dip. That's a full-blown market crash. It's a super clear, in-your-face reminder that the WNBA's entire financial lifeline rests almost completely on the shoulders of one singular, transcendent player, Caitlin Clark.
And again, she's only on one team, but a very big chunk of the total attendance in WNBA is from the Indiana Fever. They have the second highest home attendance, and teams are literally moving arenas. So yeah, a lot of teams, whether it be the Lynx opening the Upper Bowl, whether it be the Wings, the Dream, the Sky, all of these teams moving games. All of these teams are moving games for the Indiana Fever, regardless of who it is. They all have to sell those seats. And a lot of people don't want to go, and it's super cheap. Like, it's a lot easier to fill a 10,000 seat arena without Caitlin Clark than to fill 20,000. So you're going to have to find a way to do it anyway, which is what a lot of people are going to be doing, trying to sell tickets.
Remember how the 2025 WNBA season was hyped as their big breakthrough? Like record crowds, insane revenue, the whole 9 yards. Well, instead of a triumph, it's turned into a brutal, hard lesson about how fast a house of cards can come crashing down. Caitlin Clark, who literally never missed a single game in college or her rookie year, got sidelined after just 13 appearances in 2025 because of some pretty serious injuries. And get this, her absence completely ripped the heart right out of the league. That arrival of the WNBA, it's now totally exposed as just smoke and mirrors, completely dependent on one star's insane gravitational pull. With Clark gone, the numbers aren't just dipping, they're absolutely cratering, dragging the league straight back to its usual irrelevant. And trust me, the financial fallout from this leaves absolutely zero room for denial.
The WNBA playoffs begin on Sunday. Have you noticed that no one is talking about it? This time last year, the WNBA was dominating talk shows on ESPN and FS1. Content creators on YouTube were flooding the platform with WNBA videos. This year, it's complete silence. Obviously, ratings for the playoffs are going to be a flaming ass fire. But if I'm the WNBA, I am concerned about.
But here's the kicker, the most damaging part of this whole crisis isn't just the money hit, it's the complete evaporation of sports media interest in the WNBA. Think about it, major networks and commentators, who are treating the league like must-cover content, are now cooling off faster than ice cream in a freezer. Those very same media personalities who were shouting about the WNBA's big breakthrough, they're quietly shifting their attention back to more profitable sports coverage, leaving the league scrambling like crazy to stay relevant without their biggest storyline. Sports media outlets that poured significant coverage into the WNBA during Clark's meteoric rise are now slashing their WNBA segments, and some networks are even reportedly yanking WNBA content entirely from prime programming slots. The brutal truth is that sports media chases ratings and fan engagement, and without Clark constantly generating headlines and those viral moments, the WNBA has totally lost its hook for mainstream audiences. Even ESPN, which invested heavily in WNBA coverage during the Clark era, is now facing the super uncomfortable truth that their entire programming strategy was dependent on one player's star power.
We talked about Jason Whitlock disowning the WNBA. True to his word, hasn't spoken a lick about the WNBA since. Colin Cowherd trashing the WNBA. It's Caitlin Clark and only Caitlin Clark. Last year, he used to lead shows talking Caitlin Clark, talking WNBA. This year, with her injury, didn't even bother wasting more than 10 minutes talking about the WNBA this year. No Shanae, no Elle Duncan, no Monica McNutt, none of those appear.
Perhaps the most telling sign of the league's absolute desperation. How viewership numbers have just completely collapsed without Clark on the court. I mean, seriously, games that would have pulled in over 1.8 million viewers with Clark are now struggling to even hit 200,000 viewers. That's a mind-blowing 89% decline, and it totally shows just how artificially pumped up the league's popularity really was. Even those hype matchups between supposed rivals like the Chicago Sky and Indiana Fever, which used to be huge ratings battles between Clark and Angel Reese, are now pulling in audiences so tiny that networks are literally hesitant to even release the embarrassing viewership data. Think about that.
Ratings for nationally televised games have mysteriously disappeared. I knew the WNBA lived in a world of make-believe, but I never realized they were magicians. It seems when ratings fail to meet expectations, the WNBA makes ratings disappear faster than pants at the Butt Bongo Festival. Sports Media Watch, which is the go-to source for sports ratings, Sports Media Watch, they have not updated WNBA ratings since August 20.
And here's the crazy part. This ticket price collapse isn't just limited to Indiana Fever games. We're seeing WNBA playoff contests across the entire league suffering dramatic price drops because fans are finally realizing that, without Clark, the product just isn't compelling enough to justify paying premium prices. Games that were easily selling for $200 during the peak of Clark Mania are now sitting there for just $25, and even at those crazy low prices, arenas are still struggling to fill seats. This isn't just a blip, it's a fundamental shift in market demand that actually threatens the league's entire business model moving forward. But honestly, the most infuriating part of this whole mess is how completely preventable it was. Clark's season-ending injury didn't just happen out of nowhere. It was the direct result of a league that utterly failed to protect its most valuable asset, all while letting a culture of excessive physicality practically flourish around her. From her quad injuries to multiple groin injuries throughout the summer, Clark's body literally broke down under the relentless physical targeting that the WNBA not only allowed, but seriously seemed to encourage. The league that should have been building protective systems around their golden ticket instead just sat back and watched passively as their entire financial future got systematically destroyed by poor officiating and totally inadequate player protection protocols. It's truly baffling.
See, now you know them Caitlin Clark tickets was hard to get your hands on. It don't matter if she was playing in LA, Indiana, Atlanta, Seattle. It did not matter. Afghanistan. It didn't matter. It was hard to get your hands on a Caitlin Clark ticket. Y'all see how many people showed up in Iowa? They could have filled up a football stadium. A football stadium. Super Bowl. Yeah, that is the demand for.
So now, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert is in an impossible spot, right? She's trying to keep the league credible while watching the very foundation of the WNBA's new success just crumble in real time. This is the woman who was confidently talking about expansion plans and massive revenue growth, and now she has to face the brutal truth her entire growth strategy was built around one player who's now stuck watching games from the sidelines. Engelbert's absolute nightmare scenario, a league returning to its pre-2024 relevance levels, is playing out exactly like critics warned it would. And here's the worst part, the league's desperate attempts to manufacture alternative storylines in Clark's absence have completely flopped with audiences. Despite pushing other players and trying to create compelling narratives around different team matchups, the viewership data is crystal clear. Fans are simply not interested in the WNBA without Caitlin Clark. This isn't just a temporary dip while people adjust. This is a fundamental rejection of a product once you strip away its primary attraction. The harsh mathematical reality, the WNBA without Clark generates the exact same level of fan interest it did before she arrived, virtually none. And the financial mess goes way beyond just tickets and TV ratings. Merchandise sales, which had exploded by over 500% during Clark's rookie season, are now plummeting, with retailers seriously struggling to move WNBA products without that Clark effect driving demand. Corporate sponsors who poured money into WNBA partnerships based on all that unprecedented growth, they're now totally rethinking their commitments, knowing their investment was literally tied to one person.
Other than a Nike commercial, other than a Gatorade commercial, how many commercials have you seen of companies putting WNBA players as the face of their commercial? I can't think of one. The only commercial that comes to mind is the Paige Becker's Coach commercial, and they don't even put that on television. That seems to be strictly a League Pass commercial that they show us while we're watching WNBA on League Pass. Other than that, has there been any State Farm commercials not featuring Caitlin Clark that you've seen throughout this season?
But the most damaging revelation of all, how lightning fast the entire sports world has just moved on from the WNBA without Clark generating daily headlines. Social media engagement has absolutely plummeted. Sports talk shows have drastically cut back their WNBA coverage, and all those casual fans who were drawn to the league by Clark's magnetic personality, They've already moved on to other sports. This isn't just a temporary bump in the road, it's a complete reversal of all the momentum the league had painstakingly built over the past 2 years. What we're witnessing here is the full, undeniable exposure of the WNBA's fundamental business model flaws. This league, which was just celebrating record-breaking attendance and unprecedented television deals, is now staring down the harsh reality that their entire growth story was dependent on one player's individual appeal, not some genuine sustainable interest in women's basketball itself. Without Clark, the league's numbers are literally just reverting to their historical norms. Low viewership, minimal media coverage, and still struggling to fill arenas even with super discounted ticket prices.
The whole sports media is upset at the WNBA for what they've been doing to Caitlin Clark. You hear me? Depriving everybody from enjoying the game of basketball. You hear me? She put women basketball back on the map. Yes, the WNBA has been irrelevant. And I'm glad everybody is speaking up. Colin Cowherd, Jason Whitlock, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless. Yeah, everybody upset. Bruh, like, these women, they so petty, bruh, and they don't even care, dog. They don't mind hurting themselves just to hurt you, bruh. That's crazy.
Now, the playoff implications, those are perhaps the most devastating part of this entire crisis. The WNBA playoffs, which should be the league's absolute premier showcase event, are now heading into their most crucial stretch without their biggest draw. TV executives who were banking on those Clark-driven ratings to justify their massive programming investments are now facing the terrifying prospect of playoff games that struggle to even hit 500,000 viewers. This creates a brutal cascade effect. Plummeting viewership means less advertising revenue, which ultimately smashes the league's ability to maintain the salary structures and operational expenses that players have been demanding. But what's even more telling about this whole catastrophe is how it completely validates every single criticism skeptics had about the WNBA's breakthrough moment. Those critics who argued that the league's growth was artificially tied to one player's star power rather than genuine, sustained interest in the product itself. They've been proven absolutely brutally correct. The market has spoken with undeniable clarity. WNBA basketball without Caitlin Clark is a product that most consumers simply don't want to buy, no matter how aggressively they try to market it.
Fans shared similar reactions to the drastic change in ticket prices following Clark's injury. Because it's unwatchable without her, someone else added, did her injury deflate ticket prices or just prove she's the entire league's economy? Another person wrote, honestly, I'm surprised it isn't more than that. I would have guessed 50%. No matter what you think about Clark, she brings people to watch. We're lucky to be able to see her. I hope she comes back strong. You don't have to like her, but she is the headline and puts butts in this.
Commissioner Engelbert's legacy, folks, is going to be defined by just how catastrophically she mismanaged the league's most valuable asset. Instead of building actual protective systems around Clark and creating an environment where the league's biggest star could truly thrive, Engelbert oversaw a system that allowed excessive physicality to absolutely flourish, all while failing to adequately protect the very player responsible for the WNBA's entire financial comeback. The tragic result, a season-ending injury to the one person whose presence literally made the difference between relevance and complete irrelevance for the entire league. This current WNBA crisis is a brutal case study in how quickly artificial success can just evaporate when it's built on unsustainable foundation. The league that was just proclaiming its arrival as a mainstream entertainment option is now scrambling like crazy just to hold on to basic audience interest without its primary attraction. Ticket prices are in free fall, TV ratings are hitting historical lows, and sports media coverage is rapidly shrinking, all because the league failed to protect the one asset that made their recent success even possible.
I will never understand why anyone in the WNBA picks on Caitlin Clark. I mean, I think we're kind of over that phase. I think people just know she is that person for the league, but she is literally the reason they're flying planes, charter planes to games. Like, she is the reason that they're on ESPN consistently. They're not on ION all the time. They're on ESPN, especially once the NBA playoffs end. They're on ESPN all the time. Like, that was not the case before Caitlin Clark arrived. And it still puzzles me that, like, one player transformed the league and, like, she was the chosen one. We've talked about that all the time here. But the bottom line is she legitimately is the
Alright, let's talk about the harsh mathematical reality facing the WNBA, because it's absolutely undeniable. Without Caitlin Clark, they are plummeting back to their pre-2024 state of irrelevance at a pace that even the most pessimistic critics didn't see coming. Ticket prices have completely collapsed, ratings have just evaporated, and media interest has cooled off so dramatically that some networks are literally questioning their continued investment in WNBA programming. This league, which truly thought it had finally arrived, is learning the brutal lesson that sustainable success demands more than just one transcendent individual. And without that individual, they're right back where they started, scrambling for relevance in a crowded sports landscape that has already moved on to more compelling entertainment options. The message is devastatingly clear, folks. The WNBA without Caitlin Clark is exactly what it was before Caitlin Clark, a niche product that most sports fans simply ignore. The ratings don't lie, the attendance figures don't lie, and the ticket prices don't lie. Caitlin Clark was the WNBA's entire business model, and her absence has exposed just how hollow their supposed growth truly was. Until she returns, this league is going to continue its rapid descent right back into the sports entertainment obscurity where it spent most of its 28-year existence. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's the truth.